program, please. Thank you very much.
All right, good evening. Everybody knows him. W4MBM Rick Tillman is going to do a presentation tonight on satellites the easy way. So if you're like me and have struggled being able to talk to the birds, hopefully we'll get some easier answers tonight. So, Rick, it's all yours.
And I will start out by saying, every time three of us are on a repeater, the third person is turning the volume up and down, because I've been known to talk low. So if I get too low, give me a thumbs up. I didn't know if the crowd was a little thin tonight because they didn't want to get suckered into a position for an officer, or they didn't want to hear about satellites. Who knows? Some folks are, too old to deal with it probably, but then there's younger folks. John here that's planning on getting on the air next month, I think. So anyhow, I try to keep it short and sweet, so that's why I decided to use a YouTube video from a fellow that lives up in Southern Illinois. That it's about a 15-minute deal. I'll pause in between if there's questions you want to ask about anything, and hope the audio works here. If not, I'll have to lay this mic next to it.
Yeah, I think you're fine.
Hi, I'm Sean Kutzko, KX9X. Welcome to the second video in a series for DX Engineering on getting started in the amateur radio satellites. In this video, we'll go over the basics of getting on the FM satellites using the simplest station possible, HTs and a dual-band handheld Yagi antenna. We'll go over fundamentals of knowing when a satellite is going to be overhead, how to track the satellite as it crosses over the horizon, recording the satellite pass for easy logging after the pass is over, and making sure that your radio is staying tuned to the satellite frequency as the pass is occurring. It really is true that all you need to get on the satellites is a dual band HT that does 2 meters and 70 centimeters and an antenna that provides some gain to get into the satellite. I've used a Yaesu VX6 for many satellite passes over the years with reasonable success, but it has a major disadvantage in that I cannot hear myself on the satellite downlink in real time. This is what's known as full duplex operating. With an HT that doesn't have full duplex capability, I don't know if I'm actually making it into the satellite or not because I can't hear my own signal coming off the downlink in real time. That's why it's recommended that in order to achieve full duplex capability, you either have two HTs, one that's transmitting on 70 centimeters, for example, and another HT that's receiving on the satellite downlink on 2 meters, or you get an HT that is capable of full duplex operation. For today's demonstration, I'm going to be using a combination of the Kenwood THD72 HT and a handheld dual-band Yagi called the Arrow antenna. This is a 3-element on 2 meter, 7-element on 70 centimeter handheld Yagi that is very easy to hold and can track the satellite easily overhead as the satellite is passing. The Kenwood THD72 is a full duplex.
This is an Arrow all wrapped up in here. It's 40-11 pieces. It's kind of a pain to put all together. You screw it together. This one is called an Elk, which is, I used to use that one. I use this one more because it's single plane, and you just screw it.
Use the mic, please.
Yeah, that might help. Anyhow, it's a single plane, so when I'm traveling, I can throw it on top of the stuff in the trunk or stand it up behind your driver's seat. It's all together. And at home, I use 2 of those ironing board hanger things and just hang it on the back of the door in the ham room. One thing that it's a log plurality. The feed is on the front of it, not the rear like a typical beam antenna. I had a friend come up here from Florida and he said, "Man, I don't like this thing." I said, "First of all, there's color-coded bands where you screw the elements to it the correct spot." And they were all mixed up. And I said, the next thing is you're pointing it into your chest. So you had the feed line on the front, holding it like this. So that's a story I'll tell a few folks. It's cost-wise, they're pretty close to the same. This used to be cheaper than that one. That one's got a duplexer in the handle, which is optional, 10 watts max. So if you want to run some more power with a mobile rig or something, I use this one anyhow. If I want to travel a lot of miles to normally I'm gonna use this one so I can jack the juice up a little bit, but you're supposed to keep it minimal, you know, so when you use an HT, you're 5 watts or less anyhow. And real quick while I'm talking here, this is called a CJU. You can find it, it's a UHF loop with a reflector. You screw it right on, hold on a second. They use this old 1980 version, it's got a BNC on it. Get the target here. The reason they call it CJU is it was made out of canary perch in a bird cage, umbrella stays or something. And the U is umbrella. Yeah, that umbrella. J was jailhouse or something. CJU. I don't know what. But anyhow, the idea is your feed lines, you know, from here to there, no loss. And if you were using a mobile rig with a 2-meter uplink, you just hang this at the window, pointed at the satellite as it's passing. Now, Joe Lowenthal is the only person I know that worked up and down link on it. Right, Joe? I said, you didn't blow your transmitter, transmit 140 antenna with 2 meters? Anyhow, so that was, and like I say, peanuts to build one. That scrap stuff, and if you have a satellite like SO50, that's a UHF downlink, you just aim it at the satellite, you can hear it super good. And transmit it with your mobile antenna. You can get into satellites much easier than you hear them. That's something, so if you don't hear them, don't transmit it, the whole world will hear you. And the hell get into having the subtones on here like you need your repeaters, because all it is a flying repeater. And you used to have the Mexican cab drivers talking to each other and through the satellite. And some hams go simplex back and forth, and if you don't look at the band plan, you'll be on the uplink for a satellite. The whole world will hear you the whole pass.
You could bet on your own if you tried them. No mistake.
Meaning I can transmit on one band and I can monitor on another band simultaneously. This will allow me to hear in real time if my transmitted signal is making it into the satellite. One of the critical aspects during the satellite pass is to make sure that your receive antenna stays in alignment with the position of the antenna on the satellite itself. As the satellite is passing overhead during its pass, it's constantly tumbling and rolling as it goes through space. That means that the position of the antenna on the satellite is constantly changing. If you had an antenna that was in a fixed position, say for example the AO91 satellite, which we're going to be using a little bit later, that has a 2-meter downlink. So if I had my 2-meter antenna just in a fixed position throughout the entire pass, as the position of the antenna on the satellite changed, I would hear static and fading as the antennas became misaligned. In order to compensate for that and keep a downlink signal strong in my HT on my receive end, I need to make sure that I can rotate the antenna constantly as the satellite is passing overhead. That will eliminate something called polarization fading.
And I might add, you know, I've got long, big antennas, self-steering, everything at home, but you can't twist them this way. That's the beauty of the handheld antenna. So I used to take a set up to field day at the old site, and that was a pain taking all that stuff. So you use a simple antenna now, and make it, you know, kiss mode. It was more for show than it was for.
As long as I can keep the alignment of the antenna on the satellite and my receive antenna in the same plane, then I will have a good signal throughout the entire pass. So before you can work a satellite, you need to know when the satellite is going to be above your local horizon. There are several ways that you can find out when satellites are going to be overhead. AMSAT.org, the Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation of America, has a website where they maintain a list of satellite passes. All you have to do is log on, and you can type in the satellite that you're interested in finding out pass information for, and it will give you a display of upcoming passes for that specific satellite. There's a website, n2yo.com, that tracks various satellites, and you can punch in your location, and it will give you information on specific satellites and when that satellite is going to be overhead. But perhaps the easiest thing to do if you are a portable operator, as we are talking about here, is to get a satellite tracking app for your smartphone. I use an Apple product, so I'm familiar with Apple iOS satellite tracking programs. The best app that I have found out there is an app called GoSat Watch. It is not a free app, but I find it to be very feature-rich, and I like the displays that it has for tracking specific satellites, giving you a display of what satellites are above the horizon at any given point in time, and it automatically updates the Keplerian elements, which keeps your calendar on track as to when the satellite is going to be overhead and where in the sky it's going to be passing for you. If you use an Android, there are a couple of apps that you should check out. One is called AMSAT Droid Free. That provides good basic information on when satellites are going to be overhead. There's also an app for Android from the Heavens Above website that is very good and contains lots of information on other satellites as well as amateur radio satellites too.
I'm an Apple fan here, so there is a freebie called SatSat, which has a lot of information, and you can put in what satellites you want. Heavens Above, a lot of us used to use for spotting the ISS passes. So you could, more negative it is, the brighter it is. So it'll show you what passes. You can go out and physically watch it. And the repeater, this last 5 days has been off the air, but normally it's been on lately, so it's just another satellite to work.
While it's important that you have full duplex capabilities during a satellite pass so that you can hear your transmitted signal making it into the satellite in real time, that can create a feedback loop when you're transmitting, because your transmit microphone and your receive speaker are so close to each other. You'll create a feedback loop when it hears its own signal going back into the microphone. You will avoid that. The best thing to do under those circumstances is to simply wear earbuds or a set of headphones, and that will eliminate that problem. Another common question I get is, how do you log your contacts during a satellite pass? Well, that's a fair question. I mean, if you have one hand holding your HT and another hand holding your antenna, how do you write down the information of the stations that you talk to? For me and a lot of other operators, we found that the simplest solution to that problem is to record the satellite pass as it's going on and then write down the contact information after the fact. I use a Sony PX470 digital recorder. This records in MP3 format. It's got a USB port off the back, so I can save this to my computer for permanent backup if I want to go back and review passes later. And it also has a line in for an audio source, which is critically important because I don't have to rely on the internal microphone, which can capture noise in the area of the satellite pass where I'm operating. So this comes in very handy. What you can do is you can take an adapter out of the headphone jack on your HT, and you can get a headphone splitter. And one of the splitters can go to your earbuds or your headset, and the other can be a stereo plug that plugs into the Sony PX470, and then you get a direct recording of what the audio sounds like from the downlink of the satellite as you are hearing it. Another key component of recording a satellite pass is to make sure you identify what pass you're recording when you first turn on your recorder. For example, I'll usually say something like AO91 pass on October 4th, 2020 at 1730 Zulu from EN50, my home grid. That way I know the satellite that's involved on the recording, the date and time of the pass, and I'll have great audio documenting that specific satellite pass. That will help me make sure that I enter all of that information in my logbook accurately after the recording is over. Always make sure that you tag your recording at the beginning of a satellite pass with that information. It'll help you out in the long run. There's one more factor we need to consider before a satellite pass, and that's the Doppler effect. We've all heard how a passing car horn's pitch decreases as it passes by. This is because the sound waves from the moving object are compressed as the object moves closer to you, resulting in a higher pitch. As the object moves away from you, the pitch decreases. Satellites experience the same phenomena. Doppler is much more pronounced on 70 centimeters than it is on 2 meters. For the most part, we don't need to make any corrections in frequency on 2 meters. On 70 centimeters, though, adjusting for Doppler can make the difference between a successful pass or not working anybody. If you're using a satellite with a 70 centimeter uplink, you'll need to adjust your transmit frequency during the pass. For satellites with a 70 centimeter downlink, you'll need to adjust your receive frequency. Adjusting for Doppler on receive is pretty easy. If your reception of the satellite starts sounding a little fuzzy, just adjust your receive frequency down in 5 kilohertz increments until the audio becomes clear again. You'll need to set your receive frequency about 10 kilohertz above the actual downlink frequency at the beginning of a pass. By the end of the pass, you'll actually be 10 to 15 kilohertz below the actual downlink frequency. Adjusting your transmit frequency for Doppler is a little more challenging. That involves the exact opposite of receive. You start transmitting about 10 kilohertz below the satellite's uplink frequency, and by the end of the pass, you'll be transmitting 10 to 15 kilohertz above the actual uplink frequency. So how do you know when you've properly adjusted your transmit frequency for Doppler? This is why it's important to have a full duplex satellite state. When you can properly hear yourself off the downlink, you will know you've made the correct adjustments. This process gets easier with practice, so don't worry if it takes a bit to figure out Doppler correction on transmit. If you find this too frustrating at first, just switch to a satellite with a 70 centimeter downlink, like SO50, and practice adjusting your receive frequency until you have that under control. Regardless of whether you're using a full...
And what he's bringing up, the SO50 with a 440, downlink UHF, all you have to do is your 2 meter uplink, you just leave it set. Don't even have to fool with it. When it starts fading, you just drop it down. And most of your radios default to 25 kcs on UHF bands when they're new. So you got to go in and set them for 5, because if not, you drop it one click and you're out of the band pass. So I've been notorious, as Joe can tell you, for ever and ever. This old link was a 1980s vintage, but I've been using it because I don't know, I just grew up with it way back up to, even there's a D72 like he's using in his demo here. But like I say, and I actually turned the full duplex off on that thing years ago, because if you're with a group here, you can't have headset on because you got to be able to hear what you're listening to. So every time I hit transmit, I turn the receive volume down on the thing and then flip it back up, back and forth, just to keep from squealing.
What are you receiving?
Another ham on the satellite.
Oh, so you're actually...
Yeah, it's a flying repeater, and we'll show you a footprint on the program here in a second. But wherever and it's like a circle here, and it's moving across the U.S. in our case. And if you're in the footprint, you can receive from the satellite. So sometimes I used to get home from work a little early, sneaking home, and back in the old days, and I tried to catch a European pass, and it was basically the footprint was crossing from Europe and the thing just overlapping, just for about 2 minutes in there, so you could catch, France or Germany or whatever. And the satellite altitude controls how big the footprint is. So,
Nothing near vertical.
Rick,
hey,
one thing, they were talking about using the recorder, and he did say to record what bird it was and what pass it was, but it is also beneficial for you to start recording at a specific time and put it into the recorder, because you'll want to know what it is to be able to log the time that you spoke to whoever you're talking to on the satellite.
Yeah, well, the recorder, you know, has time, you know, you see a minute on there or whatever. When I've done that, a lot of times I just, you know, the satellite's gonna hit me at 14:37, and maybe at 14:36 even, I'll start
Yeah.
recording. So I can
Start recording 14:36
I
and you
hear a
go wait a
guy, you
minute.
know, 3 minutes later on the timer, the recorder, you just, you know, add 3 minutes to your log and punch it in. Of course, now we just changed time zones, you know, with the daylight savings, so now you gotta get your mindset of your +6 instead of +5. Now, the program I use at home, which is one I'll show you, I mean, it does everything. You know, it tracks the antennas up and down, left and right.
I got the mic correct.
Yeah. So, the Doppler shift counters for that, you know, changes your frequency up and down, so you don't have to worry about all the stuff you're doing here manually. But, you know, that's down the road, but in the old days, that's all you had. You didn't have computers, you didn't have all these programs. You got your QST and it showed you when it crossed the equator the first time that day, and you calculated every orbit from then. So, it was interesting. And then trying to move your rotors up and down, left and right, and kind of peak on it. And then we get into a CW gear to go with that. It looked like an octopus, you know. Used to have Joe Ray from, used to be the club member here. He'd come over and used to laugh and watch the show. You're squirming.
HT or two separate HTs to access FM satellites, you're going to want to make sure that you program a CTCSS tone on your transmit frequency. Almost every satellite requires a CTCSS tone of 67.0 hertz in order to access the satellite. This helps minimize extraneous noise on the VHF, UHF bands as the satellite is passing overhead. If you don't have the CTCSS tone programmed, odds are you're not going to make it into the satellite. All right, well, enough of being inside in the shack. Let's go out and do a satellite pass. We're going to do the AO91 satellite pass on October 16th, 2020 at 1745 Zulu. This is a pass that's about 70 degrees overhead, practically directly overhead here in central Illinois. And we should be able to work a few stations during that pass.
Normally, a demo, especially for Joe's class, Richard and I, each using the antenna holder. Well, we'll go ahead and get a bearing, you know, the AOS, which is acquisitions, is 280 degrees, and there happens to be a telephone pole in that direction. You use that for a reference, and then if it's going to be LOS when the satellite's gone, maybe a stoplight or something on the street, it doesn't matter. But you pick a reference, and then you get in your mind if it's going to be a 20-degree elevation max, or, you know, high.
Hey, Rick, you may want to explain the terms are being thrown around as if everybody understands that. I don't think everybody knows what AOS, LOS.
Well, that's why I just make acquisition and loss of signal.
There you
So
go.
it's and then the footprint I've been talking about, it'll be when it touches you initially, and as it flies over, the footprint shifts. We can show you that on the map here. And this is a grid map in this back corner up here. And you know, most reports on satellites will be your call in a grid spread. Memphis is Echo Mike 55. This whole area. Actually, not all of Memphis is, because you go downtown about University. Let's see what is it?
Cleveland.
Well, it's the north south. Anyhow, Echo Mike 45 is downtown.
Yeah.
So about a 2,000 block of, say, Union Avenue or something, where it crosses from 55 to 45. All those grids are roughly 2 degrees by 3 degrees, you know, vertically. So they actually just cut the whole earth up. And the Echo Mike, you know, there's 100 blocks in that, from 00 to 09, and then 01 up the line all the way to 99 from 00. You know, as you go across there. But that's easy to find. There's all kinds of stuff. Show that the phone app. It'll show you 10 spots. You usually use just 40 for Echo Mike 55. If you get into moon bounce or something else, people go into more details, or if you're working 10 gigahertz or something on a ham band. I think HF people sometimes use that stuff. But that's what his marks are. Obviously here in the background is where he's got a black square marked out where he's word something.
So let's go.
BB9, Victor Papa Golf from Kilo X-Ray 9, X-Ray Deal. Sub 18-9, Victor Papa Golf, Whiskey 275, Fox Nancy 30. November 9, Kilo Tango from Kilo X-Ray 9, X-Ray Nancy 50. Hey, John, Echo Mike 69. KX9XL, Battle Bay, Charlie Hotel, Echo November 63. Battle Bay, Charlie Hotel, Kilo X-Ray 9, X-Ray. Good morning, Echo Nancy 50, Illinois. Radio, Kilo X-Ray 9, X-Ray, Echo Nancy 50. KX9XL, alright, 179, good here. KHCH, Whiskey, Whiskey, Whiskey. WWL, Battle Bay, Charlie Hotel, Echo November 63, and hey, good to hear you. Whiskey, Whiskey 3, Ocean. Whiskey Bravo 9, Victor Papa Golf, Whiskey 2 set, Fox, Fox Nancy 30. KX7 UNJ from Kilo X-Ray 9, X-Ray Nancy 50. Kilo X-Ray 9, X-Ray KX7 UNJ, Delta 032 SL. KX9X, Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Tango Romeo. Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Tango Romeo. Nice to see you, Echo Nancy 50. US South Line, Bill 6973. KX9X, November Sierra 3, Sean, following the Foxtrot 20. NS3L, Kilo Echo Nancy 50. KX9X,
Okay, so in a 15-minute satellite pass, we worked about 5 or 6 different stations with a Kenwood THD-72. This is a full duplex dual band radio, so you can hear yourself on the downlink in real time as you are transmitting up to the satellite. You can also do this with 2 separate HTs, one on 2 meters and another on 70 centimeters for the uplink and downlink. But this HT does the work of 2 HTs built into one.
I hope this video gave you a few tips and tricks on how to succeed on the FM satellites. Feel free to contact me via email or follow me on Twitter and reach out with a question if I can help. In the next video, we'll make the leap to linear satellites and get you started on sideband and CW contacts on the birds. Thanks for watching. 73?
What's the footprint ballpark?
Well, hang on,
Couple hundred
we'll
miles?
give you an idea here.
They were going 5-0, grid 5-0 to, most of them were 6-9, and I don't know where they just related to.
Well, it depends on where the pass is. You cover the whole US.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kill some of the stuff
I
here.
didn't get,
Here's a freebie Orbitron that a lot of us used to use. And you can, download it. Another thing, every so often you gotta download the TLEs, which is, because ISS especially, they boost the orbit every so often because gravity can fix it since it's only a couple hundred miles up. But you can select which satellites in this particular one that you want over here. AO7, just kick it off and on, you'll probably see the, anyhow. As you move it through real time, you see the footprint coming up here.
oh, yeah, okay.
Let me get my mouse to go.
Can you expand the page there, or?
Yeah, let me.
There you go.
Now, here's my call right here, which is basically 35 and 90, plus latitude, longitude. See, that satellite footprint totally misses us. It's too far west.
At least on that pass.
Say again?
I said on that pass.
Yeah. This thing never seems to want to roll when you're full screen.
With that
Let's
problem,
bring it down for a second
cell
here.
show
I'm
also
gonna
pass.
back it up. Pass. See if it goes the right way.
Viva la Presidente.
Okay. Now let me go. As you see this one, it's still going to be west of us. Let me hit this thing. I'm letting it move on its own there, but you see when it hit us, yeah, stop it.
Is that live?
No, it's well, yeah, it is. I keep forgetting to click this thing twice. Okay, I froze it there. So at 7:18 on the 14th, you know, that SO50 footprint is coming, we just touch it right here, that's AOS for us. Then as we move forward, and also, if you pick rotator down here to show you the elevation and your azimuth. So 301 degrees roughly from Memphis this way. That's the direction you're going to point. And then it's just barely cracking the horizon, so you start to climb up. Now as you watch it progress, you'll see this elevation number down here come up, and this would be going further towards the 200-degree range, but it's going southbound. Okay, now you see how those numbers over are shifting, and we're getting, but if you look, you back it up here. Come on. Shut. Get reversed. Here we go. If you watch this number down here, you'll see, 9.597. Now drop back down. So the max is going to be, roughly 10 degrees on that pass to our west. Let me kill this one. That's what he used to use for, just general reference and stuff. John said he just downloaded SAT BC 32. This is kind of the gold standard that most of us use for at home. You want that? Kill some of this junk here. What's this info? I wonder. Anyhow, that one's the one I used at home. It automatically steers my rotors the right direction, which is G55 at Yaesu rotors, which are $760 a pop for a set of those. Then you gotta have it interfaced another couple $100 that feeds that for the computer. So you don't even time some money in this stuff. DX Atlas, that's a program I bought that this is what I'm tracking. Well, this one doesn't have anything in it. The one at the home is covered up totally black. A couple of us locally started a ward, a couple little wards, work 5 to 55. So if you got 5 people in Echo Mike 55, you got a little certificate. We used to mail those out. And about 10 years ago, we started one called Gridmaster, which you had to work all 488 in the 48 states here. And about 10 into it, I finally got number 3. In fact, David WA4HFN and I awarded it to a guy at Dayton Hamfest one year at the Tapper Amstead dinner. Got with the president. Yeah, you can do it. So, and I think about a year later, and his son actually lives in Michigan, got the second award. Well, we got up to about 10 people, including one Mexican station. And then Amstead president approached me and said, "Hey, how would you like us to take over this thing?" I said,
Yes,
"Go for
sir.
it. We're going to die someday. This way we can continue on another 60-something people." But this thing, you can, you see where the grids are there. As you zoom into the thing.
What's the size of it?
2 degrees, basically 70 by 100 miles in this area. As you go further north, they get smaller because the curvature of the lines.
I thought the first couple of digits, 3 or 4. First 3 or 4 digits would be that area.
Yeah, well, Echo Mike's, if you see this map right here, see this big square over here down, all the way across, there's 100 blocks in there. Like I say, they started, 00, work up to 09, and 10 to 19, as you go across, finally hit 99.
I'm even 55, but I've got 3 more digits after that.
You got, you can get 10 digits out of that if you want to. But, later for satellite purposes, the 2, the EM and then the 55, you know, if you're in Dyersburg, you have the AIM-56. Joe and I and a bunch of us, Richard back there, we all go to Mount Nebo on the September VHF contest every year. It's like 35, you know, which is over Mount Nebo, Arkansas by Russellville. So, and that's the little stuff you pick up as you go. This is kind of just, it's interesting to cut your teeth on it if you, like John's going to do. And he finally acquired some antennas just lately, and if he gets done playing on the cruise, he'll work on December in the cold.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I was trying to keep it short, but Sean covered a lot of stuff in his video here.
Which headband birds do you recommend?
What's that?
Which headband satellites do you recommend?
Well, let me tell you real quick. See if I got it. This real quick. You go to AMSAT.org, which is, there's AMSAT North America, which is, you know, does all their stuff here. And then there's, you know, Europe and Japan and different places. But if you get on their site and do satellite info, it charts status. That'll show you in red who's not working. Blue is what's functional, like AO91, the guy just worked on his demo. And you got, these are all launched by a group in Israel, believe it or not. They turn off and on because they kicked 8 of them at the same time. I mean, out of the launch vehicle, which is SpaceX. And as soon as it eventually gets scattered out, and then they're not overlapping each other.
Hey, Rick, how did you find out and start learning about which satellites are up there and which ones are the right ones to listen to?
Yeah, well, like I say, like ISS here, if you click on there, they give you, I don't know if my internet is still hooked up or not. They didn't give you details about it in this particular case. You know, what frequencies it's on, what the tone is. There's 2 of them. The service module has been stored or something for a while. But that'll give you, sometimes they can give you the launch date. Like AO7 up here, which is A and B mode, that I started on back in the 70s, when it was in its first 5 years of service. Excuse me, sorry, throat. But it died eventually. I think 20 years later, somebody in Europe was monitoring frequencies, and it sounds like their frequency. Found that the battery shorted out, you know, and they opened up somehow, and they figured this thing's running on solar panels only. So it's kind of nicknamed it vampire mode. You know, depends where it's dark or night or daylight. Where you but B is I think 2 meters and 440, you know, 432 UHF. The A mode was 10 meters and 2 meters.
Why the different bands? That's confusing.
Well, first of all, you have to think about a repeater. Have you ever seen a repeater that's got cavities in there to separate the minus 600 that offset like A2? But you know, when you got the new CubeSats, they call them, are 4-inch squares. I mean, they're small. And I mean, you know, the AO7 was a pretty good sized bird, but still you can't have cavities on board. It's just, you know, they're 2 feet tall, 4 of them in there, you know, this big around, you know, not counting the weight. So they used 2 different frequencies, you know. They actually had some I never worked in the old days that were like 15-meter downlinks, some Russian birds. No, yeah, you're just using 2 bands, like 2 meters and 440, UHF's 70 centimeter, to separate the uplink downlink. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got one back there. I'll just get it. But anyhow, I prefer the 70 centimeter downlinks like SO50 has, because you less man-made noise that you get on 2 meters. I don't know, it just seems to work better. Plus, you don't have to change the uplink frequency. You can leave it on 2 meters and never shift Doppler at all. Yeah. I'm going to cut this to the end here. If anybody has questions, like I say, one-on-one or some other folks in here work with the satellites and, you know, if you got, most people got an HT and it'll work. Or a pair of them, you know, some of us have 10 we never use. So, you know, you get, the aero antenna has 2 inputs, one on each driven element. Now, but the duplexer that I bought for it, so you feed one input to it and it spreads it out to the 2 bands. The elk over here is a dual, it's a periodic, so you feed the one feed. But if you use something besides HT, like I use a mobile rig, you know, this old Icon 910 or like the 9700 John and I have, this the latest and greatest stuff. You have to have a duplexer into your 2 meter and your 440 ports to run them into one output, so one cable to feed this thing. So there are pros and cons of all this types of antennas. But if anybody wants to borrow one someday and play with it, go for it, holler it.
All right, Rick, thank you so much.
All right, yes, thank you again. That was awesome to hear and learn about for satellites. So before we go, does anybody have any announcements or any other business that we need to cover? Okay, well, don't forget, please be sure to clean up your area so that way we can leave this facility nicer than when we got here. And then I know it's exciting to hang around, but we also want to get out of here somewhat promptly so that way they can get those gates locked up, of course. And if there's no other business, is there any objection to adjourning? All right.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, we got a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second, all in favor say aye.
All in favor, leave.
Likewise. All right, we are adjourned at 8:38.